how likely is it that the scenario I'm about to describe is what actually happened? Bob Arum, since last year, knew very well that the arbitration with Team Wilder might not go their way. They knew it had a very realistic chance of scuppering the undisputed fight. So he wanted to wait until the arbitration was resolved before he went ahead and finalized the contract for AJ Fury. But he didn't keep Eddie Hearn in the loop. Instead, he strung him along for months and months and months, not letting him know the seriousness of this arbitration case with Wilder, and instead was buying himself time by nitpicking things in the undisputed contract and basically kicking the can down the road all the time. Now, the obvious question would be, why would Bob Arum do that? Why would he not let Eddie Hearn know exactly what's going on with regards to the arbitration? Why would he string him along? And the answer would be competition. At the end of the day, Top Rank are rivals of Matchroom. And maybe they felt like, if we're going to be inconvenienced by this arbitration case with Wilder, let's inconvenience Eddie Hearn and Matchroom. Let's throw a spanner in the works for them too. If the undisputed fight with Joshua comes off, great. But if it doesn't, at least we've inconvenienced Eddie Hearn for the best part of a year. Sounds pretty Machiavellian, right? Pretty skullduggerous, if that's even a word. But is it plausible? Having followed the sport of boxing for as many years as I have, I personally believe it's very plausible, because there are all kinds of shenanigans that go on with regards to the boxing business. All kinds of dirty tricks and foul play. And most boxers who have been in this sport for long enough will tell you the same, that it's a dirty, dirty business. You've even heard Eddie Hearn say this. It's a dirty business. How likely do you think that scenario is? How realistic do you think it is? How plausible do you think it is? Because that is what I'm thinking at the moment. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just saying that's what I'm thinking. Because when you look back in retrospect, the signs were all there. Bob Arum talking about maybe we'll fight Wilder next. Even Tyson Fury, several times over the past few months, has been saying maybe we'll fight Wilder next. Why? You never heard Anthony Joshua saying, maybe we'll fight this person next, or maybe we'll fight that person next. Team AJ was solely focused on the undisputed fight. Whereas Team Fury, not so much. Now, of course, they could have just fought Wilder and not had this drawn-out arbitration process. But perhaps they really did want to fight Joshua. Perhaps they wanted to explore that avenue, but knew that, yeah, we can explore it. There's a good chance that Wilder's going to block it. And they just didn't let Eddie Hearn know for the reasons that I've already explained. And maybe there's an element of cold feet a little bit on behalf of Team Fury because of the fact that Tyson's been out the ring for so long. Remember, Anthony Joshua fought in December. Tyson Fury hasn't fought since February 2020. So the longer the situation dragged out, the longer they were having to kick the can down the road, the more they started thinking, you know what? Tyson's been out the ring a very long time. Maybe it's not a good idea now to put him in against Anthony Joshua at this point. Maybe we're better off taking the Wilder rematch and then fighting Anthony Joshua after that. At least Tyson Fury will be more sharp and ready for that bout. Perhaps they are supremely confident in beating Deontay Wilder for a third time and they don't see it as any kind of huge risk which could jeopardize the monumental payday of the undisputed fight. But be that as it may, as I mentioned in the previous video, if they go ahead and fight Wilder rather than Joshua, Wilder's still one of the biggest punchers in the world. So there's always the chance, as remote as you may believe it to be, there's always the chance that he loses to Wilder and that huge payday against Anthony Joshua goes down the drain. At that point, you'd be wishing that you had paid Deontay the 20 million step aside. Now, as far as where both fighters go from here, if they can't salvage the undisputed fight, Fury, of course, will face Deontay Wilder in a trilogy fight, probably in July. And Anthony Joshua will almost certainly face Alexander Usyk in a WBO mandatory defense. I like AJ versus Usyk. I don't hate Fury versus Wilder, particularly not at this point. If it had happened last summer, I would have definitely not liked the fight, and I would have expected a very similar result to the second fight. But happening all this time later, when Wilder's had more time to recover mentally, physically, when he's had time to work on things, I like the fight a bit more now than I did a year ago. It would have been better to see them have fights in between because, again, I've never been against a trilogy fight involving Fury and Wilder, but I didn't want it to be consecutive back-to-back-to-back fights. That's what I didn't want. Obviously, they had their first fight, then Fury had 2-0 fights. Wilder, of course, fought Brazil and Ortiz in between. Then they had the second, and I was like, come on, we don't want a third right after it. Allow some time to elapse. Let both guys go off and fight different people. And if Wilder can build himself back up into a good position and get some good wins under his belt, then maybe a third fight. Now, obviously, he hasn't built himself back up and got any decent wins under his belt since the Tyson Fury rematch. But as I've already said, he has been away. He's been working on improving himself as a fighter, becoming more technical, and, you know, he's had time to recover mentally and physically and so on. So, you know, I don't hate Fury Wilder 3 at this point, but of course, I would have much preferred the undisputed fight between Joshua and Fury. And if there's any way the boxing gods can still salvage this fight, then I'll be hoping and praying that they do just that. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Just a short little video to cover certain points which I didn't cover in my previous video on this topic. Come and join me on Patreon and access my weekly no-holds-barred, censorship-free podcast where we lift the lid on a wide range of controversial topics. It's not mainstream friendly, it's not politically correct, but that's the whole point. We dare to stand as a beacon of reason against an army of insanity. Just head on over to my Patreon page and select the tier called Hatman Hot Topics. You'll gain access to a minimum of 2 hours of exclusive content every single week, including podcasts, videos, interviews, live stream Q&A sessions, as well as my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. Not to mention a vast back catalog of hundreds of hours of previous episodes. You can listen via the Patreon app with the option to download in high quality MP3. We've also got a Discord server where you can come and chat and hang out with myself and other members. There's no contract, no commitment, and you can cancel at any time. So come and join our community of free and critical thinkers by signing up with me here on Patreon today.